dreams so you can sleep sound and dream deep. This evening, we're going to take a little trip into outer space, among other places, in these three short dreams. And we'll get right into it, but we'll see what the connection is between going into space, theaters, and water. So the first dream starts off with the dreamer saying that the details were a bit hazy, but he was either traveling with his family or as a planet on a spaceship. And the spaceship was passing through some kind of radiation that was having physical and psychological effects on the group of people traveling. That's dream number one. The next dream is that the dream of professional theater production, sort of like off Broadway, I suppose. He's standing up against he's standing up near a wall rather than sitting in a seat so he could get a better view of the stage. And suddenly a nerdy looking guy, he says, with a mustache, came up and started talking to him and thinking that perhaps he knew him and that the dreamer worked at a local supermarket chain, Tesco's in this case, and wanted to talk to the dreamer about recent changes that were happening in the supermarket. At that point, the dreamer decided to sit back down in his seat to get away from this gentleman. The third dream takes place near fresh water, whether it be a river or stream, though the dreamer also adds that it might have been an aquarium, not sure. There was a woman or young woman or girl sitting by the edge of the water and looking at a very strange red fish. When the dreamer went over to look at this fish, it apparently one side looked normal, I guess, and the other side had a friendly, slightly ape-like looking face. So those are the three dreams. And at first glance, you might be thinking, what the hell is all that about? But we'll find out. Remember, the unconscious mind is very, very clever, and it uses all kinds of tricks to get our attention, including plays on words, different types of techniques, mnemonics, all kinds of things. But we'll see what the relationship is between these three dreams, and hopefully in a little bit. But starting with dream one, with this trip to outer space. Now, the dreamer wasn't sure whether they was traveling as an entire planet or as a family unit in a spaceship. Now, you can think of this in a couple of ways, as the human family, as in everyone on Earth, and as a planet, that would make sense, or as a particular discrete family unit, the immediate family. But either way you look at it, it indicates movement or travel to a different environment, a different time frame, a different space, literally. Now, this spaceship was passing through some radiation which impacted everyone, both physically and psychologically. So you look at radiation, which radioactivity is harmful to body, mind, and spirit. And if you extrapolate this a little bit and look at it in a wider context, because we dream at both micro and macro level, because we're all human and all have similar, though not exact, experiences. But if you look at this in the context of this current lockdown, it has us all traveling as a planet, the whole human family traveling to a new space and a new place into the unknown. And we're definitely being bombarded by something or by this virus. And it is having physical and psychological effects on everyone. So this is what I mean when I say though we may be dreaming at the micro level, we actually incorporate the wider world into our dreams as well. So that's the journey on the spaceship. And there may be other things that will come up during the course of this, but we'll see. The next dream in the second dream, the dreamer is standing rather than sitting down to get a higher view, to get a different perspective. And if we refer back to the first dream, it's getting a higher view, going up into space and looking down and getting a wider perspective on what's going on. The other thing that occurred to me when reading this was that, life is art, or, we create the movie of our lives, or how art and reality have merged in this particular case. Now, I'd have to come to this guy with the mustache. Why he was described so interestingly as a nerdy guy with a mustache. Now, what do nerdy guys with mustaches mean to the dreamer? Anything? Why the mustache as a feature? Is it just a means of identification, or is there something about mustaches that are significant? Who is this guy? He apparently seems to be unknown to the dreamer, but what does he evoke in the dreamer besides wanting to get away because he doesn't work at Tesco's? Do you know this guy? Have you ever seen him in waking life? Or someone that like that? And again, our shadow, the parts of us that are hidden and unknown or underdeveloped, will usually appear in our dreams as the same sex. So I wonder if this is some unknown or unrecognized part of the dreamer, and is it actually the shadow? Now, going back to this mistaken identity, I guess, where the dreamer was taken for an employee of a supermarket chain, the largest, as it happens, in the UK. And now, this made me think of things like, at the moment, there are all kinds of changes going on in society because of this virus, including how we actually can shop. Where you have to stay 6 feet apart from or 2 meters from each other. You can only enter the store a couple at a time, the people at a time. So there's something about changes and a supermarket, which may be a reflection of just what's going on in daily life at the moment. It's become more of a major operation to go get food these days. But my question to the dreamer is, why was did this gentleman mistake him for an employee of a supermarket? Was it just pure mistaken identity? Was he wearing something that may have looked like a store uniform? Just what clued this guy in or made him think that you actually worked for a supermarket? Now, all this time, the dreamer had been standing until this gentleman came and started talking to him, and then he decided to leave his higher view and sit down to get away from him. And there's something perhaps about taking a lower or more passive, perhaps, position as opposed to a higher and more active position by being on standing up, rather. Now, what occurred to me with this was that avoidance was kind of following the law of least effort. It was just easier to just move away from this situation than to perhaps maybe there's some dreamer's life where there's avoidance of something or someone going on. And now, as we come to the third dream, this dream involves water. Now, water in psychological terms represents our emotions, represents our inner lives, if you will. So it's interesting that this water was either an aquarium, and that's interesting. A river or stream runs free, whereas an aquarium is actually trapped. And not only is it a closed and trapping environment, it's also visible to other people, so other people can look into this space. And that there's something perhaps with the dreamer about feeling like being exposed in some way, as opposed to letting the emotions just flow, and be free. They're being trapped and enclosed in some way and maybe pinned down. And I wonder if the dreamer may be feeling that way with regard to certain events or people in their life. We come to now to the woman or girl that was sitting by the water. Who was she? What did she look like? Is this person known in or appear like to be like someone in their waking life, or was it a stranger? And again, in psychological terms, is this young woman representing the anima, the connected emotional side that lives within men? And I suspect that she may be, particularly as she's sitting by water, which is a very much an emotional or psychological milieu, if you will. Now, she's looking at a very strange fish, a red fish. And color in dreams can signify, or the lack of color also can signify something important in the dream. What does the color red or red fish signify to the dreamer, if anything at all? Does it evoke any particular emotion, like, dislike, indifference? What does the color red and fish evoke? I mean, the color red could evoke some things like passion, danger, but what? What exactly does it mean to you? What does the fish mean? The fish could mean any number of things. It depends on the context of the person and their lives to understand what the meaning of any symbol in a dream is. They're particular to the dreamer. Um, there are certain themes that run through that are common to all humans on the planet, but generally symbols in a person's dream are particular to them. So, what does the fish mean to the dreamer? It has religious connotations. We just passed Easter, and the symbol of the ancient Christians was a fish, because in Greek the letters that spell fish, ichthys, translates to Jesus Christ, Son of God. So there's perhaps some religious connotations with regard to that fish. The another expression that came up to me is fishing, literally fishing for information, perhaps. And maybe that's what the young lady was doing by the side of this pool or stream or aquarium, fishing for information of some kind. About this strange looking fish, ape looking face on one side of it. So that what came up, there's, which is a toy. There are monk fish, which are rather expensive and a bit rare these days. And the name also has religious connotations, a monk fish. And humans, we're called naked apes. So maybe, and there is this theory that humans actually descended from fish-like creatures that crawled out of the sea onto land and eventually became us over time. And even fetuses, when you see them in their growth stages, at one stage they do look like a fish. So maybe there's something there as well with regard to appearances, things maybe not appearing as they seem, or being different from what they should be. That's something perhaps for the dreamer to look at. So, what is the connection between these dreams? There's something about perspective here, either a very wide perspective and high perspective, like from somewhere out in the galaxy, or standing in a position where you can look, have a wider view of the stage, the human stage that Shakespeare talks about, that we're players on and walk on and off. And constriction. There's, you have the fresh water and stream in the third dream, which implies movement, and freedom to a certain extent. And then you have perhaps that it might have been an aquarium. I posit that it may be, depending on your perspective, it could be both. You could be in an aquarium having people staring at you, but depending on your perspective, you could still be free of that space. And maybe that's the lesson here for us all with these three dreams, that space and time is all a matter of perspective. It's mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter. So I leave you with that. I hope that gave you some things to think about. And if you'd like to have your dream looked at here on Crack the Code Thursdays, please do get in contact with me. And you can either leave a message on the post when it goes up, you can send me a personal message, or you can book a complimentary session with me. The details are below, www.meetingwithsheila.com. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Have a great evening and rest of the week. Stay well, stay safe, and see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.